have you here regardless of your gender, your race, your age, your class, your ability. We welcome you. I'm Vanessa Cowie, and I'm today's worship associate here at the Unitarian Universalists of Transylvania County, where our mission is to support individual spiritual journeys and to promote social, economic, and environmental justice. When it comes to the COVID pandemic, we recognize we're all in this together. We're grateful when you wear masks while in the building, except when you're at the pulpit, and another exception, which you'll hear momentarily. And we appreciate it when you sign in on the clipboards to facilitate any contact tracing that might be necessary. You'll find Reverend Bob has posted a chart of mask effectiveness in the social hall with questions of those of you who attend in person. Our choir was freshly COVID tested this morning, and we're experimenting with the choir being mask optional under those conditions. We'll be singing without masks, at least some of us, this morning. Congregation, please sing through your mask for the time being, but we welcome your singing. Please be mindful of the need for full air exchange in the sanctuary and move to the social hall between services. And we hope while you're there, you'll read what Reverend Bob has posted. It's little orange blocks. You'll see it. You won't miss it. If there's a deep joy or concern in your heart this morning that you'd like to share within this community, ask an usher for a piece of paper. Ushers are standing at either side of the sanctuary. Jot your joy or concern down, and an usher will bring it forward to be included in Reverend Bob's pastoral prayer, which follows Cycle of Life. Another announcement, Tuesdays, lunchtime is a bring your own picnic on the green, and Saturday is our intergenerational gathering. Everyone is welcome. We remind everyone that this is UUTC's pledge drive season to prepare for the 2022-23 budget. We're almost through the pledge drive. We'd like all the forms back by March 31st in the box in the lobby or by mail. And if you didn't get or just can't lay your hands on your phone, just ask and we'll get you another one. Thanks to all who have returned their forms already. Thank you. Each week, we feature a video testimonial from people in the congregation as part of reminding us the many ways this congregation is important to us and why we support it with our time, talent, and treasure. This week, we feature Cadence Renner, and her words will be followed by the choir's introit.
On Sunday morning, when my parents say it's time to go to church, I feel happy because I know I'm going to get to see some of my friends, sing fun songs, dance, and do fun projects. My parents say they are so lucky to have our church here in this community because they know that I will always have a safe space to be myself and explore who I want to be. They tell me that I'm such a strong girl that they are happy to have some help with the tough questions that come up in life. My mom and dad told me that now is the time to make your pledge to UUTC so that our church can be here for the future generations like me. They say that they hope everyone will make their pledge to the church so it can continue being a safe place for all of us. I told them that I pledge allegiance to the United States of America every day. So I guess it's a lot like that. We need everyone to pledge to make our church as strong as possible.
give us peace, grant us peace. Words which are so important for us to hear and to sing in these times. Everybody sing with us. That you're beginning now to sing.
Our opening words today we take from Monica Jacobson Tennyson. What is it that calls you here? That calls you onward, that calls you inward, that leads you homeward? What is it that gives you the power to make that change, to ask that question, to take that journey? What is it that says, you have done well, that asks you to learn more, that brings you to stillness, that holds you up in hard times? It is relationship, the beating heart of our faith. It begins when we share this hour, our truths, this air, our hearts. Come, let us worship together. We move more deeply into our worship service with the lighting of our chalice, the symbol of our faith, and with words today from Deborah Falk. A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith, a faith built on the foundation of freedom, reason, and tolerance, a faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice, a faith that visions a world flourishing with empathy, with equality for all her people, a faith that demands the living out of goodness, a faith that requires thoughtfulness, a faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is the symbol of the spark of all this within each of us. May it be so. And now, please rise as you're willing and able for our opening hymn, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door.
I'd like you, if you can, turn to the window over there. I know for this family that's kind of hard, but I hope you have flexible necks. Maybe some people over there can't quite see it. You see our lovely chalice with the sun shining, streaming in through it, and the windows behind that are getting kind of dirty around the edges. And this is my message for this morning. And yes, by the way, yes, there will be a work party coming up the 9th of April. You can sign up for one of those tasks to clean the windows. We're going to have it all spiffy for Easter. We, as people go through phases of life and times, and there's some of us too who go through the winter months with the lack of sunlight, feeling less and less energized, or perhaps we have been noticing the losses of family members. The story that I have this morning is one that I have abridged and paraphrased from a book that my wife Christy had loaned to me at one point to get really great stories out of. And I'm going to use these flowers as an example, and that window as a tangible evidence of it. In this story, there is a family that lives in a cottage long ago, far away. And at the end of winter, a stranger comes to their door and notices the grayness, the drabness. The ground is still rather muddy. They're not quite as far along as we are here in Transylvania County with some of the budding out of things, but the daffodils had come up. And so this stranger had brought a daffodil from out in the wild on the walkway and presented it to the child of the house. Then went in and said, we have this gift. What shall we do with it? And a parent said, well, first off, we need to put it in a vase with some water. They did that. And then they tried to figure out, well, where do we put it? They put it on the table, but it was rather a dark corner for the table, so they decided instead to put it right at the window. Let it shine in the sunlight. And then they noticed that, yeah, the windows need some cleaning. So they went ahead and washed off the windows with all the grime that had built up. And then once the grime had been taken away, they realized that the room wasn't sparkling so much either. So they went around dusting and cleaning and straightening things up. Ended up doing a full spring cleaning. And somehow by the end of it, the light streaming in and the flower, and then looking around afresh at where they were living, they felt something of a renewal. Out of their winter doldrums, the grief of a family member they had lost, out of the dullness and the lack of sunlight, this one gift, a flower, or in this case of flowers, a reminder of beauty and life, a renewal in some way that reminded them of the tasks to come back to life. This is the time of Ostara in the pagan traditions, the time in which flowers and bunnies and all sorts of things are visible again. From those examples, those gifts, we can be reminded once again to reawaken from our winter doldrums, our griefs, our grayness, and maybe do a few things that help us remember our faith, our connection, our zest for life once again. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. But when you see the flowers here on a Sunday morning, when you see the sun shining through a window, remember this story and think of the things that help you regenerate, renew, remember your faith. We have an entire family here which may or may not want to leave at this point. They may want to stay in the service, but we're prepared for any of the children. And I'm just going to say out loud, let's see. That would be Charlotte, Josephine, Thomas, and James. You're welcome to be with us this morning here or in the classroom. We're going to sing the song. If you decide you'd like to exit out, you can follow Tricia out to the classes. If you decide to stay here, you can. Or if you decide halfway through that you're in the wrong space, you just go on back to where you need to be. We appreciate you visiting with us this morning. Would we all please sing along? Peace be with you and our blessing. Peace be with you and our blessing. Peace be with you and our blessing as you leave us now.
When we voice any deep joy and sorrow in this community, we believe our connection helps to multiply the joy, and our compassion eases the pain of our grief and sorrow. We pause each week to open our hearts in this cycle of life. If you're watching us live online, we invite you to share joys and sorrows in the chat function. And although Reverend Bob and I can't see those things written in the chat, we will light a candle for them. I'd like to light this, have this first candle lit for the joys of spring, for beginnings, for those rabbits and flowers you just mentioned, Reverend Bob, for sun and growth and flowering. And this next candle is to honor our whole lives, or OWL participants who went on a retreat to the mountain this weekend. You probably saw on the slide. We honor them. We're proud of them. We also honor the frontline workers on whom the burdens and risks of the COVID pandemic fall most heavily with this candle of gratitude. And we light a candle for all those milestones, joys, sorrows shared in the online chat. We light a candle for joys, sorrows, and milestones that are unvoiced at this time. And then this is a final candle for all those who are suffering from the violence in Ukraine. Let us take a moment to reach out with our thoughts and our prayers and our hearts as the choir, in a repeat from last week for those who missed it, brings us the Ukrainian national anthem. And please stand as you're willing and able. Thank you.
Our prayer this morning includes the notes that have been passed to me, the thoughts of all of those who have been part of the pastoral care. I am also including words from the Reverend Renjilian as part of this prayer. Spirit of love and life, we are gathered here in this space, cognizant of all the tension, sorrows in the world at this time. Just as we thought we were getting a handle on helping refugees from Afghanistan, we are now looking at millions streaming from the Ukraine. And we hold all of these folks in our hearts. We cannot forget as well the refugees from Syria not that long ago. Our world needs our compassion. It needs our resolve. And we need the strength of community to recharge and remember that we can be kinder to one another. Spirit of love and life, I don't know how my kindness today will change the world entirely. But may I be an example. May we each be an example. We pray as well for the specifics, for the congregation's own members who are suffering. We remember Tom Bindrum in our prayers today, and Joan, who's been supporting him after his stroke as he recovers. May he continue to do better and better, just as he has already surprised those around him. Our prayers go out to Bill Kimsey, who I know wanted to be out by now, but is still recovering under care from his car accident weeks ago. Our prayers go out to those who are continuing their cancer treatments, whose treatments little by little are addressing what's needed and unfortunately may be weakening the rest of their whole bodies. We have joys as well, the wonder and the joy of what we see around us, the beauty of our spaces. We have the beauty of the faces that we see among those who have returned in person among us for I don't know how long it's been, and those who may be finding their ways, all the way from Tallahassee, for example. Tom and Joyce have a joy that Tom's son Greg and spouse Melinda and their family contingent is all with them here this morning. For those who are also wondering about transitions in life, wondering about what's coming next in the uncertainties, we lift up in particular a prayer for Justin Wesley, who's Trisha's partner, to find a good job quickly. These, the prayers of our hearts, the thoughts of our minds, we hold on to. And I add to this a prayer in a time of transition by Julianne Lepp on this spring equinox. Dear Goddess, Mother and Source, your womb is all of creation. Your love is mother's milk. Please grant us support during this transition. Please help us move through this next stage. Please carry us in arms of support, grace, and love so that we may bring new life to this day, our lives, so that we may grow as a community of ministry, so that we may birth a whole new way of being together. We ask this in your holy and sacred name. Amen. I'm trying to think. Sometimes you like me to be funny about this. Sometimes you like this to be an ordinary ritual that's reassuring. And sometimes you want a fresh, new metaphorical look at it. And I couldn't decide this morning how to ask you for money. But I know it's important to do so. We need your time, your talent, your treasure, and your trust for this place to work. I think Cadence Renner did it best in her video this morning, sitting before the camera reading from her practiced words. She pledges allegiance to America, and maybe the way in which we pledge to this place is what we give, not holding our hand over our heart and repeating a particular chalice lighting, but instead to again and again participate in the ways in which we give our generosity. Because all the times that I say this, I remember to say that what you give in love, we receive with great joy. And we do. We will now receive the morning offering.
Thank you, Sue.
Little lamb, little innocent lamb, I'm gonna serve God till I die.
Little lamb, little innocent lamb.
I'm gonna serve God till I die. Hypocrite, hypocrite,
Tell you what you do.
I'm gonna serve God till I die. He'll talk about me and he'll talk about you.
Talk about you.
I'm gonna serve God till I die. Little lamb, little innocent lamb, I'm gonna serve God till I die.
Little lamb, little innocent lamb.
I'm gonna serve God till I die. Devil, he's got a slippery shoe. I'm gonna serve God till I die. Now, if you don't mind, he's gonna slip it on you.
Slip it on you.
I'm gonna serve God till I die. 'Cause there ain't no dying over there. In the heavenly land. In the heavenly land. In the heavenly land. 'Cause there ain't no dying over in that land. In that heavenly land, there'll be joy, joy, joy. Just take a break from Satan's war. I'm gonna serve God till I die. Satan's war gonna tumble and fall. I'm gonna serve God till I die. Little innocent lamb, I'm gonna serve God till I die.
Little lamb, little innocent lamb.
I'm gonna serve God till I die. 'Cause there ain't no dying over there. In that heavenly land. In that heavenly land. In that heavenly land. 'Cause there ain't no dying over in that land. In that heavenly land.
And yes, what is given in love we receive with great joy. I'm not going to sing it on the soprano note there. Joy. And we say thanks. For those of you at home who may not have noticed, although I think the camera was able to move over there, those of you in this room, as Vanessa said, and I really love the sound, our choir is mask optional today. We're trying that out, seeing how they're feeling about it, how you all feel about it. Some of you may decide you're going to move way over there or something, but as we transition, as the prayer was talking about us being in transition, we're going to be moving ahead with mask optional, and we figured your minister's slow at this, but the choir 2-3 weeks in a row kept saying, well, so Bob, we ready now? Since they're tested every Sunday morning that they sing, we figured, all right, they are all freshly COVID tested and came out fine. We thought this would be a good way to help you begin to get psychologically prepared for the science that says your mask protects you. And for them to be able to take off their mask means that you can hear them better too, much clearer. The reading that I have this morning is by David Rankin. Those of you who have been members for a while remember David Rankin, I believe, was the editor of the Unitarian Universalist World magazine and a writer. And this was written as a prayer, but it makes a great reading for today. I love to pray, to go deep down into the silence, to strip myself of all pride, selfishness, and coldness of heart, to peel off thought after thought, passion after passion, until I reach the genuine depths of it all. To remember how short a time ago I was nothing, and in how short a time again I will not be here. To dwell on the joys, all ecstasies, all tender relations that give my life zest and meaning. To peek through the mystic window and look upon the fabric of life, how it still breathes, how solemn its march, how profound its perspective. And to think how little I know, how very little, except the calm of the silence, and the singing of the night. Or the singing of the choir. Sermon this morning is Remember and Renew. I'm preaching it on this very appropriate time of the year, the balance of day and night, the spring equinox time, Ostara, and all the images of babies being born. What is it? Next Saturday we have the intergenerational event to go see the baby goats and other things. We have this vibe this time of year. A reminder that we're at the edge of something changing, shifting. It's also a time to remember what happened in the past, this particular week in history. A vibe of something showing budding life and change. You don't think of spring as being a need for near violent, heroic exertion, but it is. Spring is an entire investment of growing things, despite the fact that frost may still come, and a few of those daffodils were cut down by the really tough cold. To realize that this is not the perfect time to have an easy life, but it is a time to have a strenuous life if we're going to get the life that we want. This is the anniversary of the Selma Montgomery March, for example, in 1965. It's said that when we remember, and we remember correctly, we can renew. A coach who you could hire online said this: "You're worn out because the escalator is going down and you're going up. And you stumble because you won't turn around." Appreciate that. Sometimes you have to go with the flow and just ride the escalator back down. How many of you have gone against the escalator sometime in your life? I have literally done so. I was going up an escalator, so this is a lot easier, when I saw friends from college in an airport at the bottom. And I excuse me, as I ran down the up escalator to go greet them before they went off in another direction. I say that because even though I like this message, and I may preach this message sometime, I don't think this is the day that I'm going to preach it. That because the escalator's going down and you're going up. Because I think of Selma. And I think as we remember, we renew an energy to say we're going to go against. Now, I bring up Selma again because I just was reading in the news about how Alabama is redoing their constitution, probably the largest constitution in the world, one which had been proudly proclaimed to help make sure of white supremacy from that time forward in 1901. They used those words, as much as politicians may now say, you cannot teach this in certain schools. It was written under that premise. To think that it took from 1965 until now to begin to work on some of the things that had been overruled by courts, taken away by certain legal other changes, to finally go back into that document and work on its great volume. You remember the big business directories, phone directories that could get so thick? Sometimes you have to go against the escalator. So how do you find the energy to do that? Where do you find the place in your heart to give you the courage? Courage is heart-related, to be able to do the renewal. And the poetry and meditation class that I'm leading throughout this season has been one in which we listen to the speaker on the video talk to us about how if you don't have a spiritual life, you will dry up and blow away like a leaf in the fall. You really need roots, rejuvenation. And maybe it's going to poetry, maybe it's going to prayer, maybe it's any number of things, but there's something about it of where do you touch where you are? And for me, sometimes that's remembering why. Why did I get into ministry? Why did I want to be a Unitarian Universalist? Why do I support? I just put my pledge envelope in the box this morning. This was the original deadline to put it in. We postponed it because we know somebody didn't do it yet. But why do I do this? Well, I go back to where that zest, that inspiration was real, tangible for me, for the very first time. And sometimes this is important. Sometimes it is so important to go back to where you remember that touchstone of energy, that place in which you felt like something was right. I looked up online some quotes, and Logan Haley, who's a writer on medium.com, had this quote in there, and I'm quoting her. Remember when you were a kid, everything in the world was fascinating and new. A walk in the backyard was an epic adventure. Every stuffed animal or action figure had its own name and personality. This sounds much more like 60s than me, but life was like a psychedelic trip. Colorful, imaginative, and full of novelty at every turn. If you can remember back to those times, first loves, beauty of feeling safe in the world at some moment, a deep connection in your own spirituality, that can help you remember your roots in whatever season you're in. You see, coming through the winter is not one of death, but rather rootedness. Where and how far do those roots go that you can then draw from again to push out new leaves for new sunlit days? Sometimes when we have been faced with traumas or transitions, 2 years of COVID trauma perhaps, the deaths that come through each time as we grow older, our own deaths may occur. Benjamin Franklin wrote that some people die at 25 and aren't buried until they're 75. Yeah, oh, if you didn't catch that online, there's somebody in choir saying, oh. Don't be that person. Yeah. Keep open to the joys and the possibilities. Bo Haley wrote, in life, you're either in the movie or you're watching the movie. Now, there are times when both are important. And by the way, Logan Haley, who I quoted earlier, had those quotes interspersed in what Logan Haley was writing. And so credit due. Your minister finds quotes all over the place. Type in a search term and here's somebody who's wise. I'm going to steal it. In life, you're either the movie or you're watching the movie. That's a cool one, too. And I would like to say to renew your faith, to remember your faith. I like that word, remember, to put back the parts. To remember your faith may mean either of those, that you are very alert and aware in the moment. The movie is about you. You're in it, at least. Maybe you're not the star, but you're in that movie. Somehow, you're a player in the whole narrative or supporting character. I was more a backstage person, set builder, something like that, lights crew. You're in the movie. But then there are other times in your life when you just need to watch. How many of us, when we have a really rough time, turn to our remotes, clickers, and say, Netflix, what do you got for comedies today? Maybe, come on folks, admit it, maybe you go to the Hallmark Channel. And you know exactly how the movie's going to turn out even as you see the title screen. Okay? But you still, you got to watch the movie. And it's not just the literal movie, it's watching the lives of others around you. Your kids, your grandkids, nieces and nephews, neighbors. Watching a random interaction while you're out for your walk. Seeing the squirrels chase each other up and down a tree. And click, you have reignited. Anne Lamott writes, my coming to faith did not start with a leap, but rather a series of staggers from what seemed like one safe place to another, like lily pads, round and green. These places summoned and then held me up while I grew. Each prepared me for the next leaf on which I would land, and in this way, I moved across the swamp of doubt and fear. Doubt and fear. I love that imagery from Anne Lamott, and I think of those of you who have found your way to Unitarian Universalism by hopping other lily pads. Has this finally gotten you to where you need to go, or is Unitarian Universalism just another lily pad on the way? And oh no, it's pledge time, and some of you are thinking of hopping away. The moment we ask for money. If that's discomforting to you, go up the down escalator on that one, folks. But stick with it. It's good discipline. But in terms of your faith journey, in terms of understanding where your zest is, where it's leading you, each of the safe spaces, and I've heard this lovely indication from folks who are Unitarian Universalists say, you are exactly what I needed. And now I'm moving onward. We are the place sometimes for people who are on, not as the old joke said, a way station on the road from Methodism to golf, but rather a stepping stone a lily pad, a place of safety to hold here, and what would be next. Now, I happen to find the joy of being a Unitarian Universalist who like wore out some bits of what was the religion of my childhood and rebelled as a teen against the religion of my parents. And because the religion was Unitarian Universalism and I rebelled, I was still within Unitarian Universalism. So I have not leapt away from this faith. But I understand how some people find for a while it works and then they move on. When it is time for you to remember, I would like you to think of appreciative inquiry. And we're going to do this as a congregation at various times of our being together. And write down the September date. I think it's the second weekend of September. After Labor Day, we're going to have a retreat at the mountain. You saw a picture of our youth already out there at the mountain are about, they're studying their sexuality curriculum as teens. And they're there on retreat getting in-depth lessons this week and a chance to enjoy the great outdoors in a UU space. We hope for you the chance to recover from what you love to bring forward into what you are. And that appreciative inquiry is remembering how you felt when you first got here, how you felt when the aha moments came in your life, and how you can get more of that. Now, some people think, all right, if we could only make it 2019 again, with Donald Trump in the White House tweeting each day in ways that set headlines, and no worries about coronavirus, and, hey, maybe even we want that Blockbuster store reopened so we could be kind and rewind our VHS tape when we're done with things. And because those were the exact things that made us feel alive, that helped us. It's not that, folks. We're not saying that you have to go back to watching VHS tapes to know that the stories on those movies are helping you be alive. You cannot go back to previous presidencies or pre-COVID. But what you can do is recover and renew from your childhood sense or from whatever lily pads. What did it feel like when, and how can I have more of that now? And that's what we're going to invent on this lily pad. You use TC right here for you. We're going to invent it all? No. We're going to invent it with you to have those new ways of being renewed. Because we know it. Anne Lamott talked about doubts, and that's a good place to put in a doubt. How is UUTC ever going to do that for me? Did it once before, but how's it going to do it again? It's just not the same. I have doubts because it's not the way of my childhood. It's not the way of before. Anne Lamott said again, I have a lot of faith, but I'm also afraid a lot. I have no real certainty about anything. But I remembered something Father Tom had told me when I was little, that the opposite of faith is not doubt, but certainty. Certainty is missing the point entirely. Faith includes noticing the mess, the emptiness, and the discomfort, and letting it be there until some light returns. Remember the flowers and the dirty window. UUTC has dirty windows. But we're also offering you a chance to lend your talent in scrubbing them clean. We're also offering you the chance to notice the messes that we have and dust a little here. Beef up a weakness over there. Letting it be there, though, until some light returns. I want us to be looking towards the light and the renewal of faith, because it's said, as it says on a tea wrapper, get wisdom from anything, Bob. What we love, we shall grow to resemble. And may we love the light and the renewal and the images that spring can give us. I leave as a closing quote, a quote from my mom, Jean Renjilian. We each in our own particular way light our lives and the world around us. We may offer our passion as the awakening dawn, the clear brilliance of noonday, the quieting twilight, or as distant starlight in the depth of night. Each of us is essential to illuminating the universe. May we collectively remind each other of that. Blessings. And now, if our heart is indeed in a holy place, what can we accomplish? May we sing closing hymn number 1008 with zest, when our heart is in a holy place. Our closing words are from the Reverend Sam Trumbore. Go forth in simplicity. Find and walk the path that leads to compassion and wisdom, that leads to happiness and peace and ease. Welcome the stranger and open your heart to a world in need of healing. Be courageous before the forces of hate. Hold and embody a vision of the common good that serves the needs of all people. Blessings on all of us as we go out, not like this flame, but bright and lighting the way for others. And may we find our way back again to this place of love. Blessings on all of us. Amen.